Welcome, everyone. On behalf of the ADR section of the Florida Bar, I welcome you to our first ever Health and Wellness series, Be Well, Stay Well. My name is Patrick Russell. I am the chair for the Health and Wellness Committee for the ADR section of the Florida Bar, as well as its chair-elect. When I'm not doing this important work, I am a trial lawyer and a certified mediator in the Miami office of Lydecker Diaz. The Health and Wellness Series is a project that we have been working on for more than 2 years. Today's presentation, Balancing Wellness and the Ever-Present Demands of Technology, is our second webinar out of 6. More than ever, health and wellness is an important issue for all lawyers and one that cannot be ignored. We are very excited to bring you these 6 compelling and thoughtful webinars that address health and wellness from different perspectives, including today's presentation, which takes a look at technology and wellness. All of our panel members are experts in their own right and have wonderful tips, insights, and ideas to share with you. We want to thank our participating sponsors who have made a large portion of this program possible, which includes the University of Miami and the Legal Services of Greater Miami. To begin our program, we would like to first share with you an introductory video from our Florida Bar President, Dory Foster Morales.
Hi, I'm Dory Foster Morales, President of the Florida Bar. I'm so thrilled to have been invited by Oscar Sanchez as Chair and Patrick Russell as Vice Chair of the ADR section to give brief introductions to this important webinar series, Be Well, Stay Well. Thank you, Oscar and Patrick. I do applaud the ADR section for shining a light on health and wellness, especially during this new and stressful time when all of us are still adjusting to the new normal as a result of the COVID-19 pandemic. As a practicing lawyer, wife, and mother, and small firm owner, I'm extremely passionate about health and wellness in the legal profession because I understand the stresses of balancing a career, our clients' needs, along with all our other personal responsibilities for family and friends. Before the pandemic, we knew the life of a lawyer was fraught with emotional difficulties. In 2016, the ABA and the Hazelton Betty Ford Foundation published their study of nearly 13,000 lawyers. The study found that approximately 28%, 19%, and 23% are struggling with some level of depression, anxiety, and stress, respectively. And when this pandemic was added into the mix, it heightened those issues. Life became even more complicated. The depression, anxiety, and stress that lawyers are already feeling may be intensified. I want all of my fellow lawyers and members of the Florida Bar to know they are not alone. It's okay to open up, it's okay to be imperfect, and it's okay to get help. Please take advantage of the many pandemic resources on the Bar's website, especially the Florida Lawyers Helpline, 1-833-FL1-WELL. This is a 24/7 free and confidential member benefit, which provides counseling and referral for up to 3 free therapy sessions with a licensed mental health counselor. Remember that your professional success includes your happiness and your well-being. Thank you.
At this time, I would like to introduce Illenia Sanchez-Bryson, our presenter for Balancing Wellness and the ever-present demands of technology. Illenia is the Chief Information Officer at the Legal Services of Greater Miami. She works with a staff at every level of her organization and across the legal services community to use technology to improve performance. Illenia believes that technology is a powerful tool to improve the way we serve the community, but it cannot fix inefficient processes. She focuses on improving underlying processes before implementing new technology solutions. Illenia received her BA in International Relations and her Juris Doctor from Florida International University. Thank you, Illenia.
Thank you so much, Patrick. And thank you everyone for joining us today. I'm excited to be here. I think this is a very important topic and I commend the ADR for focusing on this. So why is this an important topic and why are we focusing on this today? Well, I think we're all asking ourselves, why am I so tired, stressed, irritable, burned out? depending on the day, maybe a different adjective, but we're all feeling new pressure. And as the video at the top of the presentation indicated, employers were already feeling stressed before the pandemic, and this has only exacerbated some of those feelings. Well, it's no surprise that we're feeling this way. The CDC says that an outbreak can affect our mental health and psychological problems are comparable to those of experiencing a traumatic event. So even though this has not been going on for months and you think you might be getting used to it, there's still a tremendous amount of stress associated with COVID-19. You can be feeling anxious, irritable, angry, and these feelings are going to bleed into our work and to our personal lives. And what I hope to focus on today is how we can use some of those technology tools that we're working with every day to help us be better prepared to make it through this pandemic, to be able to serve our clients, but also take care of ourselves. So just to put some levity into this, I just saw some memes that I thought were very helpful to sort of frame this, which is, remember that time when we lived in precedented days? That was awesome. It feels like the news every day is saying these are unprecedented times. This is an unprecedented event. And just hearing that can put a pressure on us to feel like, how can we adequately respond to these very new and challenging times? And for those of you that are living through this, you might wonder, it feels like so long ago. If you remember the beginning of the pandemic, going out and buying toilet paper and groceries seemed like a life-altering event. Being isolated with our families for an extended period of time, trying to find social connection using Zoom or Teams or some other social media platform, teaching our children at home while we also try to work and be professional, and watching Tiger King now seems like it was ages ago. But this has all happened since COVID hit our community, and most of us in around mid-March ended up having to go home. So it's been months of this. It's a prolonged effect, and we need to make sure that we're using our technology tools at our disposal to deal with all the stress that all these different situations have caused. So this is, when I did a search of sort of the top words that come up during the pandemic, this is shows you just the biggest things that we've been thinking about, keeping our hands away from our faces and sanitizing, and all of these things are constantly bombarding us aside from our regular work stress. So it's no wonder that we feel agitated and stressed out. So how has COVID changed the workplace since all of these things came in, teaching our children at home, limiting our social contact, wearing face masks? Well, we're now working surrounded by family and additional distractions. Many of us have kids at home, spouses at home, roommates, where at the beginning of the day, we would all sort of scatter and go to our different places. Now we're all in one space trying to coexist. That means additional demands on our bandwidth of the internet. So connectivity issues become a problem, distractions, and just generally feeling like your world's been turned upside down. There's no real definition of weekday and weekend anymore. We can work anytime because it's all sitting there on our dining room table or in our home office. And it's hard to set those boundaries. And if you're not going out a lot, if you're still socially distancing and remaining somewhat limited in your interaction with the outside world, it really you can't tell the difference if it's a Monday or a Saturday. And that can also lead to stress because that's just the routine that we've been in for decades. We're feeling socially isolated. The people that we would normally see at work, our friends that we would see on weekends, we might not have seen at all or in very limited circumstances, or certainly in situations that look very different if we're wearing face masks and keeping ourselves a distance from our friends and loved ones. But on the plus side, if you're living in Miami or in another big city, you're not having to deal with big work commutes, or you're not driving long distances. So that's, you have to take the good with the bad, I guess, in very trying times. But with all of this lack of boundaries, lack of weekends, lack of definition of what our days should look like, we have to ask ourselves, why do we need boundaries? Well, again, as was highlighted in the video, stress is at an all-time high, not just among lawyers, among the entire community. People are feeling more stressed, people are eating unhealthier, data from Garmin and Fitbit for the first few months of the pandemic was indicated people were moving less, people were just more sedentary. All of that leads to additional stress because if you're not eating right, if you're not exercising, if you're not having social interactions, your sort of brain chemistry is off from what you've normally been used to. People are probably consuming more news. That also increases stress. and people are trying to distract themselves with additional activities. So we need boundaries because we need to be able to manage all of the stimulus that's affecting the way that our brains operate. So how do we help ourselves create some of those boundaries while working from home and not in our normal surroundings and environments? Well, the first thing I would recommend is to remove any alerts on your phone, especially for work email, potentially also social media, depending on your social media consumption. But removing alerts on your phone is going to make it so that when you walk away from your computer, you're not constantly getting buzzed that you're continuing to get work email. In my office, we've seen people who are naturally able to now work earlier or later based on their personal preferences because we're not limited by the confines of when people come into the building. So getting an email at 5 a.m. or getting an email at 11 p.m. is not unusual, but depending on your work preferences, 11 p.m. you may already be in bed, and having that phone buzzing next to you is not going to contribute to good mental health. Setting do not disturb hours on your phone. So maybe you have limited alerts, but you have some priority people that would get through no matter what. I know I do on my contacts, but maybe there's times in the day when nobody should be bothering you. You really should be getting rest or sleep or exercise, and you want to set those do not disturb hours on your phone. Set working hours in your calendar. If you use Outlook or Teams, it lets you define your working hours, and it shows you outside of working hours if somebody tries to contact you during those hours. And it's not that they can't email you, but they should not expect a response. So for instance, I tend to start my day a little earlier. I might be on working at 7:30 or 8 a.m., and I might work through 6 p.m. But if somebody's a night owl and they're emailing me at 11, I'm probably in bed by then. So setting those expectations that I'm going to be more responsive during these work hours, even though we're all home and I could jump on my laptop at any time, I want to set those expectations that this is when I'm working. And just like we limit notifications on our phone, we want to limit those on the computer. I think where in the office people would just pop in if they needed to see you, it was much harder to control those distractions. In email, people are just popping in with a quick question in your email, or if you're using Teams or Slack or any of those other communication channels, you might be getting alerts from those. Those are incredibly distracting. Studies show that even a 2-minute interruption can derail you for about 20 minutes. So if you're working on something, if you need to concentrate on something, blocking those limitations will really limit those interruptions in a way that you really couldn't even when you were in the office. So it gives you some additional control over how often you're interrupted. And because we're limited in the ability to just pop into someone's office, people are more likely to message you with, a quick question or, just a very short email that it can wait till later. But if we tend to be responsive and trying to answer all our emails the second we get them, it's going to get in the way of you focusing on bigger projects or cases or things that you need to work on for more extended periods of time. And this one's not work related, but it definitely impacts our entire day, our entire well-being, which is limiting social media interactions. There's studies that have been done about how social media actually creates greater unhappiness in people, especially the more you consume it. And I think in a time when we're feeling isolated, we're already sort of not having our normal social interactions with our support system and our groups. If you're only focused on social media, you can have an echo chamber of news that you consider negative news. You can see people sort of, for me, for instance, I've been working this whole time during the pandemic, and I've seen a lot of people, baking bread and learning to knit and crochet, and you can start to feel this pressure, like, should I be doing all of those things? And if you haven't had the time to do those things in your personal life, you can start to feel the pressure like you're somehow not measuring up. So limiting those social media interactions and those alerts from social media can sort of help to ground you in your reality and not continue to focus on comparing yourself to others. I talked a little bit about email and email interruptions, but I think this is critical because I'm a big proponent of moving away from email. There's a lot of security reasons why email isn't good, and it's actually one of the least secure methods of communication, but it's a reality of the workplace. The average worker receives 121 emails per day. There's many reasons why this is a problem. Those notifications that I talked about earlier can be very distracting. They can sort of get in the way of other things that you're doing. We feel the pressure to constantly be checking email in case something is coming in. We feel that pressure to respond to those emails, especially if they're from somebody higher up in our firm or organization, like we want to seem responsive. We can feel disorganized because email is coming in at such a fast clip that maybe we're not able to properly sort, what's important, what needs to get filed away, what needs to just get discarded. It's very hard to gauge tone from email. So it leads to a lot of extra work of like, what did he mean when he emailed me this? What was that question? Are they, are they upset that I did something this way? So it can lead to a lot of anxiety, just not understanding what the message meant. And depending on where you work, there may be a culture of having to respond to email right away. All of these things make email something that generates a ton of anxiety. If you're in an organization that has other forms of communication, I highly recommend that, to the extent that you have control either of yourself or others in your firm or your team, to move them to additional channels of communication. For instance, moving to communication within Teams or Slack, where your messaging is going to be much more beneficial. So I want to challenge you to look at your email. I obviously have Outlook, and I did this where you at the top search and you look at how many emails you received. Because as I mentioned in the previous email, my previous slide, I'm sorry, most people, the average worker receives about 121 emails per day. I think most lawyers receive more. And I think during COVID, that number has gotten even higher. So when I did this, I can tell you that my average ended up being around 220. So I'm well above the 121 average. The reason that I challenge you to do this is because it'll help you gauge if email is a good source, not a good source, but a source of stress, a source of high stress for you. And then maybe come into some of those tips that we're going to talk about managing email. Because it's just a part of the workplace. It's not something we can necessarily get around, but we need to be cognizant of the toll that it takes when we try to constantly respond. There's a culture or a move to saying zero inbox, so that at the end of the day, you always clear your inbox. And while I try to do that, there's times when that's just not possible. And I recognize that the stress that I put on myself to try to get to zero inbox may actually just be counterproductive to me focusing on other things. So I challenge you to take a look at this and figure out what your email looks like. And that could mean that you're subscribed, you're on a bunch of listservs that maybe aren't, or email groups, or subscribe to things that you don't really even read, but they just clutter up your inbox and you're taking a second or two every day to delete. But if that's the case, unsubscribe from those. Take some time to look at your inbox and see what's actually coming in, because that is a tremendous source of stress, and during COVID is getting utilized even more. So I talked a little bit about other ways of communication. Like I mentioned, Teams. If you're an Office 365, Teams is part of your Office suite. Teams is a great way, and if you're on G Suite or Google, they have Google Meet, which also allows the same sort of functionality. It's important to do that, not just because of the video conferencing, which I do think is important, because communication as close to face-to-face as we can get is going to make you feel more connected. It's going to improve communication between people in your organization, and it's going to get you closer to feeling like you're in a cohesive work environment versus everybody in their own silo, just getting email and working on their own. The other benefit of things like Google Suite, Hangouts, or Outlook, Teams, is that they usually have a communication chat channel. My goal in my inbox is to try to get as much of those small internal messages over to my chat and not in my email. The reason that that's important, I think, is because in our inbox, that's where primarily people outside of our organization should be communicating with us. But right now, the way your inbox is structured, you very likely get internal emails like saying, happy birthday to Susie, but you also get a message from opposing counsel on a settlement. And all of those messages are sort of clustered in together. And when you open your inbox, if you were away from the office for a day or unable to answer emails because you were dealing with a hearing or in court, you might have 100 messages. And you have to go through all of them to figure out which ones are I can delete this isn't relevant to me, and which ones are ones that immediately require your attention. If you can move any of those internal communications over to Teams or over to Hangouts or Slack, if you're using Slack as a separate communication channel, you're going to be able to free up your inbox to have much more of that important external communication, and then have that channel for your internal communication. It has all sorts of additional benefits, like it lets you share documents, and it lets you track conversations, and it lets you convert any chat into an immediate face-to-face interaction through Meets in Google or through Teams in Outlook in Office. So there's all these additional benefits to that, aside from just clearing up your inbox. The other benefit that it has is that it lets you use emojis. I get emails all the time that are like, okay, or thank you, thanks, sure. In a chat communication, that can all be taken care of with a quick emoji, a thumbs up, a smiley face. And I know for some people that's just way too millennial and maybe not the way you think you should be communicating. But it is expedient and it's efficient. And if it's just an okay or a thank you, that's a much faster way of communicating that by, clicking a thumbs up on a message rather than creating another email just to say thanks or okay or something like that. And I attended a training a couple of years ago that said the telephone was in wide use for approximately 10 years before the legal profession adopted it. So I understand that we are hesitant often to embrace new technologies. We have email, we're comfortable with email, but that's why I call it the email challenge, because I want you to challenge yourselves to other ways of communicating and to really minimizing the use of that inbox so that it becomes an important repository of external messages and not cluttered with all the internal communications as well. The other thing I want you to challenge to look at is your calendar. Your calendar is very powerful. And there's that saying that if it's not on my calendar, it's not going to happen. So one thing that we forget sometimes on our calendar is to create time to focus on projects. We put appointments, we put meetings, we put deadlines, but we may not put a block of time. So I know that on Friday I have a big proposal due. I should be blocking out time earlier in my week so that is done ahead of time. And if it's just on my task list, but there's no space for it on my calendar, I haven't planned for when that is going to happen. And that's going to create anxiety and it's going to create undue stress. Whereas if I really take a look at my task list, and this is something you could do daily or at the beginning of your week, and say, these are the things I have to accomplish this week, and this is the time I'm dedicating to that. That will make you feel much more in control. All of this is about managing the level of control you have over your day, over your communication, so that you can then plan your days in a way to be successful and also reduce anxiety and stress. So creating time to focus on what's important in your calendar is going to create greater mental wellness for you. If you're using Outlook, there's this great tool, and you can actually search your inbox for no reply at Microsoft.com, and it's a My Analytics email that it sends you, and it actually creates a sort of a digest or report for you weekly. One of them is on focus, and one of them is on wellness. If you look at the focus email, it will actually give you the option to set focus times, and it will block out 2 hours automatically every day at the beginning of the week for you on your calendar for focus. And that will show you as unavailable to others as though you're busy, just like if you were in a meeting. But then that's time that you can focus on whatever project or task you need to get accomplished for that day. The same thing for the wellness digest that it produces. It tells you how responsive you are, how quickly you're getting back to messages. It gives you all kinds of analytics of how you're managing your wellness in terms of your email and your calendar. These are built-in tools. They're already there for you, and I think it's very powerful to use them and to leverage your calendar and to leverage these analytics because at the end of the week, it gives you a report on how you did. Did you stay focused during those hours where you blocked out time? Were there days where there wasn't even a 2-hour block where it could give you focus time? And it gives you places where you can sort of improve so that you can build in more time to control your own schedule and your own calendar. And as I mentioned, integrating your tasks with your calendar. A lot of us have task lists that were like, Monday, these are the 5 things I need to get accomplished. But it sits outside of our calendar as a to-do list, maybe on our desk, maybe on a to-do app, but it doesn't live within our calendar. And we are setting ourselves up for failure on a daily basis if we have a calendar full of things that we need to get done and a task list full of things that need to get done, and those two things do not coordinate with each other because we're not giving ourselves the time to be successful, and we're just creating more anxiety, and we're creating the sense that we're failing. We're constantly falling behind, but it's because we're not managing our task lists, our to-do lists, our inbox, and making sure that they're all integrated so that our expectations of ourselves are realistic. When we're home, we have to take a moment to also focus on our personal wellness outside of just the work wellness, but they go hand in hand because if you are not feeling well, you're not going to perform well at your job. When I started working from home, I would open up my laptop at the end of my dining room table. We didn't know how long this was going to go on. After about a couple of weeks of that, I realized that was not working. Every day I felt like I had to unpack all of my things and start over. And I set up a designated workspace. My laptop was always set up there. And I had to make sure that it was something I didn't have to open up and start brand new every day. That created a sense of normalcy. You also want to have natural light. It's much better, it's not possible for all of us. If you don't have a workplace with windows, I recommend you get one of those LED lights that mimics daylight. It is powerful for your brain to sort of feel like it's when it's awake and focused and working in daylight. And you'll see sort of a little bit later, I'll talk about blue screens to filter some of that blue light so that your brain sort of naturally starts to power down at the end of your day. You want comfortable seating, you know, were you sitting on your dining room table? Were you just sitting on a couch? That may not be working anymore if that was something you did at the beginning. So make sure that you're comfortable and that your screens are at eye level. You know, in the workplace, there's all these OSHA requirements. There's all these things that employers have to do to make sure that our chairs are ergonomic and our mouse and keyboard are. But when we went home, maybe we didn't think about any of those things. And I encourage you now to take the time to look at your workplace and make sure that you have the ability to sit with a good posture, that you are comfortable in your chair, that you have a workspace that's dedicated for you. And to the extent that you have, you know, client communications or files, that it's a secure workspace where you can keep things safe as well, because that can lead to additional anxiety. Our days are starting and ending, and it's all blending, as I mentioned at the beginning. As a matter of fact, Microsoft Teams is going to be releasing an update, I believe in early 2021, that says if they found that workers are missing their commute. Are they missing getting on the bus or the train or driving in traffic? Probably not. But they are missing that sort of marker that started their day and marker that ended their day. And so Teams is actually going to try to replicate that commute, not by making you pretend that you're sitting in traffic, but by making sort of almost similar to the thing that I talked about with Microsoft's Outlook Focus, but it's going to set your day by like setting your intention or what it is you want to accomplish, and then evaluating your day at the end of the day. And it's a way to set a marker, like I'm starting my day now, and these are the things I want to do. I'm ending my day now, and these are the things that I got done or things that I should be proud of. So having a morning routine is a way for you, without Teams launching that, to say, this is what the beginning of my day looks like. It's not just like jumping out of bed in my pajamas and I immediately start working. Having a morning routine, try to wake up around the same time. This is important for our brain chemistry. This is important for the way that our bodies, you know, sort of know to ramp up. Those of you that, you know, maybe when the pandemic started, we're like, oh, I can sleep in a lot more. May have noticed that you start to fall into a routine where you're waking up at the same time no matter what, because your body's been accustomed to that for a very long time. So to the extent that you can keep that up and not start pushing your bedtime later and later and waking up at a later time, keeping that same routine. Take some time for yourself in the morning, go for a walk, do yoga, read the paper, whatever makes you happy, whatever makes you feel like you're starting the day with a positive outlook. That will be very helpful for the outlook for your entire day. Get some exercise or physical activity, something that gets sort of the good juices flowing in your brain. That's very helpful to do at the start of the day. That may not always be possible, but if it's something that you can do, I highly recommend it. And set an intention for your day, something that you want to accomplish, something, and it doesn't have to be like, I want to get done this report, but like, I want to be successful in who I am today, or I want to be successful as a partner today, or I want to be successful, or whatever that looks like for you, whatever you want to accomplish that day, sort of big picture that you can carry with you through the day. I want to be more patient with the people that surround me. So that's a very general one. It doesn't relate to a particular case or a particular project, but it does say that today that's what I'm going to focus on. I'm going to focus on practicing patience with myself and with others. And just like you have a set wake up time, have a set start time for work. This also helps colleagues know when it's okay to call you and when it's not. My colleagues know that once my kids start school at the beginning of the day, I'm usually on and working, so they can start contacting me. But it also makes it so that I'm not anxious because I'm starting to hear calls coming into my phone while I'm still trying to get my kids ready for school. It sets those expectations and it reduces the anxiety that I feel. Just like we put in time in the schedule for you to focus on big projects, you also want to build time in your schedule for yourself. So, you know, they say sitting is the new smoking. Just sitting at your desk all day is terrible for your health. So make sure that you're building in time to stretch, and there's tons of applications or YouTube videos that you can watch. This is a great thing. Technology has in a lot of ways democratized things, where before you used to have to go to a yoga studio or you used to have to go to the gym or a chiropractor to get all these things. There's a lot that you can now do at home that are videos that help you stretch or work out kinks in your neck or in your shoulders. And I encourage you to go on YouTube, find one that works for you, save it. There's a lot of like 5-minute desk stretches, and so that it's something you can do, build into your day. Add a task or an app reminder that reminds you to drink enough water. Again, these are there's so many tools out there. It could just be a reminder on your calendar. It could be an app that sort of tracks and helps ping you. Even smartwatches sometimes will send alerts or reminders to remember to drink water and track your water intake. This is important, again, leads to overall well-being. Make sure you have the time to take lunch. You know, we're working at home and it seems like the kitchen's just a few steps away for a lot of people, but it may be harder than ever because you're feeling more tied to your desk than ever. So make sure you're taking the time. And because a lot of us are still home, the ability to meal plan and prep is a lot higher because we're not having to pack all that and take it places with us. So to the extent that you can, take the time to plan your meals, take your lunch break, and take that time to really nourish yourself. And use breathing exercises. You know, it's, again, talking about that social interaction, whereas before you might have popped into a colleague's office to vent for 5 minutes, maybe you're feeling more isolated and you can't do that, but you still need to find a mechanism for dealing with that built up anxiety or stress or anger that you might be feeling. So breathing exercises, meditation exercises, things that are going to help you regulate your emotions will be very beneficial if you can't lean on the social supports that you used to in the workplace setting. Just like you start off your morning with a routine, you should have an evening routine. You should plan for ending your day, turning off your laptop, turning off the computer, sort of closing out for the day. That's not to say all of us, experience that, where at some point we have to run back in and do something because there's an emergency, but having a general time where you're winding down your day, oftentimes if we work too late and then try to go to bed, our brains sort of haven't had time to decompress. That interrupts sleep. So just thinking that you can work all the way through and just jump into bed and go to sleep is unrealistic. It's just not the way our bodies are built. So making sure that you build in enough time to shut down that computer, spend some time outdoors, vitamin D is important, all the sort of fresh air, sunlight. If you're just sort of at your computer all day long and not getting any of this time in or not getting any time outdoors, there's a reason that people feel seasonal affective disorder and all that. It's because of that limitation of just feeling like you're indoors, maybe in a workspace with no sunlight. It's going to start to affect the way that you think and the way that you're able to function at work. Eat an early dinner. Don't, again, the same way that working right till bedtime, eating right before bedtime and just sort of crawling into bed is not going to be good for you long term. Spend time with family or loved ones, even if it's you live alone and you can't see people, connect virtually. That's where those tools come in to help you as well. To make sure that you're setting up a Zoom call or getting on a Facebook Live or doing something so that you're connecting with people around you that are important to you. We are social individuals. We need that social interaction. It does not work for us long term to be isolated and not having our support system engaged with us. And I mentioned this a little earlier, set up that blue light filter on your phone. To the extent that you should not look at your phone at all if you can, probably like about an hour before bed. But if you find that you can't do that because maybe you read a book on your phone or your tablet and you sort of depend on that, make sure you set up the blue light filter on your phone or tablet so that your brain is sort of not getting that unnecessary blue light and it's not interrupting your ability to ramp down and go to bed at the end of the evening. Bedtime routine, again, just like morning and evening routine, have a set bedtime just like you wake up at a set time. It really is better for your brain to sort of have times that start and stop times itself, and you'll get better sleep as a result. I recommend meditation if you find that you're having racing thoughts. We're all feeling a lot of pressure and anxiety, and maybe we're ending our day running through all the things we didn't get accomplished. This is just a plug. It's a free app, Insight Timer. It has thousands of different kinds of meditations. Find one that works for you. You can set the same one every evening if you find that it's helpful. But using those tools to really do a check-in at the end of the day and calm yourself so that you're able to get a good night's sleep. Gratitude journals, often people find these are helpful. Again, it's not a technology tool, although there are electronic versions of it, but just writing down a few positive things at the end of the day that will help you remember what you're grateful for. So even if the day seemed like you didn't get the things you wanted to get done, you're overwhelmed by email, your calendar was a mess today, but something good happened and you should write that down and focus on that because it'll set your mind at ease to be able to then fall asleep and function better. And again, racing thoughts, sound machines often help sort of calm those thoughts and get a good night's sleep. Anything you can do to get yourself to be able to calm your mind and go to sleep is going to be incredibly beneficial for your long-term health. And then this is just a concept that has come up because a growth mindset has been, for some time now, something that they say we should aspire to. It's almost like the idea that grit is good or having sort of perseverance. But there's more and more being written about how important a growth mindset is during a crisis like COVID-19. If you're not aware, it's basically a growth mindset versus a fixed mindset. So a growth mindset sees failures as opportunities, feels that a challenge is an opportunity to grow, wants to learn, takes feedback as constructive criticism and builds on it, and wants to try new things. A fixed mindset is, failure limits me. Either I can do something or I can't. It's very black and white. It's not evolving or something that you can continue to change into. You don't like being challenged. You feel it's threatening, and sort of easily frustrated and to give up. There's all sorts of reasons why a growth mindset in students is a positive thing, why they're trying to teach it to students. Obviously, you don't want students giving up and not finishing lessons because they feel that they're unable to. But entrepreneurs, startups, obviously they thrive in growth mindsets. But in the workplace as it's changing, and we've talked a bit about technology today, it is very important to have a growth mindset because technology is changing all the time. The workplace as a result keeps evolving. But during something like COVID-19, we are being challenged even more to have a growth mindset because when you're faced with a crisis, the old, it ain't broke, don't fix it, this is the way we've always done things, has been thrown out the window in a lot of ways. For instance, people who always hated things like Zoom or Teams and always wanted an in-person meeting and, thought that face-to-face was paramount and maybe still think that, but have been forced to use these alternative tools. Growing with those and learning with those is having a growth mindset. So the ability to learn and shift to new things is incredibly important. Your business is not going to do well. You are not going to do well if you're not ready to take on new things and learn new things. And the ability to innovate and reinvent ourselves. The economy is changing. I think the way that we're going to do business is changing. The businesses that are going to exist and survive. So in order to be successful in an ever-shifting environment, the ability to have a growth mindset, the ability to think about learning and trying new things is going to be paramount. One great example of this is the idea that in the future, in the ability to code, even light coding, it's not going to be like something where you have to know all sort of the different types of coding, but coding light, which is what they call it, is going to be not a part of just an IT job, it's going to be a part of all of our jobs. And it's something that if you have a growth mindset, you might be taking some online courses now to sort of get your feet wet in this area. If you have a fixed mindset and you think, I'm never going to learn coding, I don't want to, you may struggle in the next few years in the workplace because that's where technology is moving in the workplace. So a growth mindset, obviously because technology is so pervasive in our lives, applies to technology, but it applies across the entire spectrum of our work and personal lives. So how do we get started with having a growth mindset? You want to focus on your positive expectations for the day. So what are the things that you want to accomplish? Assuming good intentions. We waste a lot of energy assuming that, if somebody said something is wrong, it's because they're criticizing us or they don't think we're competent or that we can't do our jobs. But if you assume good intentions and think that feedback that you're getting or input that others provide you is really coming from a good place and that you can learn from it, that's going to help you evolve and take in more constructive criticism in the process. Being thankful, a lot of these tools are sort of built into everything I've talked about, the gratitude journal and meditating and setting intentions. Self-care, because you cannot grow if you are not feeling it, sort of your ability to learn new things. It's just not going to be there if you're like an empty well. So it's that whole idea that you can't pour from an empty chalice. You can't do something new if you are feeling completely run down. It's important to take care of yourself and to do all the things that, whatever that means to you, to make yourself feel whole and make yourself feel like you're ready to face the day. Focus on solutions, not complaining. We all complain. We're all going to feel stressed. We're all going to feel like we need to go talk to someone, at the end of the day if we're feeling stressed out. And that's fine, but at the end of the day, we have to move past that complaining to solutions. So, okay, that was annoying, but what can I do to fix it? What can I do to improve this? Who should I be talking to? Who should I be bringing in to help solve this problem? And that's going to make you much more responsive in your work life and in your personal life to be able to move past challenges. COVID-19 has brought up 1,000 different challenges for us on every day that we never thought about before. And bringing in people and moving past the complaining about this is just terrible, I hate doing this, to how can I do better, how can we improve, is going to help your business, it's going to help your personal life, and it's going to help the way that you feel, whether you're anxious, depressed, stressed out. And play to your strengths and learn from your weaknesses. We could talk all day long about the things we're not good at. I'm not good at this, and I'm never going to be good at this. But maybe there's another strength that complements that weakness. If you find that the solution that you tried for something didn't work because it was your weakness, figure out why that was a weakness, why that didn't work, and play to your strengths. What can you do? What is in your sort of toolbox that can help you solve that problem, that can help you get past this issue? So it's really about growing and making ourselves move forward and being open to learning and trying new things. And everything that I've said today about technology, if you're somebody who's like, I hate technology, it's terrible, all of this is about trying new things. And if you're already, bad at email and you're thinking like, I'm never going to get past email, that's how I prefer to communicate. Well, then play to your strengths. Is it because you're really good about answering emails at a certain time of the day? Then maybe you want to block that time out in your calendar and make that your email time, and that's how you're going to reduce your strength. So you don't have to take every tip I said today, but play to your strengths and see which ones of them work for you and are going to make you more successful in your personal life and at work. And then finally, ask for help not because you're weak, but because you want to remain strong. I've talked a lot about different things that you can do to help yourself, a lot of things you can do to take care of yourself, but that's not to say that you're expected to solve these things on your own. These are very real stressors. This is a very difficult time. There are a lot of us who are struggling, and there is no shame in saying, I can't do this alone, I have to get someone to help me. And whether that's a colleague, a coworker, a family member, or if you don't feel like you have that network, or if you feel like those are not the people who could help you, then I highly recommend that you contact the Florida Bar. Again, as the video mentioned, there are resources. If you go to Florida Bar Member Health and Wellness Center, there's tons of resources, COVID related and also just related to mental health, substance abuse, alcohol abuse. And you can also call 833-FLORIDA-1-WELL and talk to someone, get the help that you need, because it's okay not to be okay. As I mentioned, these are unprecedented times and we have to be prepared to take care of ourselves so that we can get through this together. And now I think, Patrick, if there were any questions, I'm happy to answer them.
Okay. If you have a question, the attendees can type in a question in the panel that's provided for the webinar, and I can then read that to Elena and see if we can get some answers or an ongoing discussion. While we wait for those, I have a question for you, Elena. You mentioned a very interesting tool for Microsoft Outlook where you type in the no reply at Microsoft.com. Can you go through that again a little bit of like exactly how that works?
Sure. It's an automatic email that Microsoft Outlook generates and sends to users. Most of us may have it even set to go to spam because it's like one of those, it looks like a newsletter from Outlook. But if you go to, I'm going to just try to go back to the email address there. If you search the email address, it's like no reply at Microsoft.com, it'll actually pop up all the emails that come from them. And you should see one that says My Analytics, and there's one that's My Analytics Focused, and another one that's My Analytics Wellness. And it gives you a digest of how you're using email, what's, how many interruptions you're getting, how quickly are you responding to email. And then the focus one in particular offers you the option to block out time just to focus each day. So it literally takes a 2-hour block of your calendar and it says focus time on your calendar. And then what I do is I go in and I turn each focus time and I put focus time, grant proposal, focus time, and that way I know what I'm doing with each one of those focus times. But it blocks out that time automatically on your calendar. So there is no reply at Microsoft.com and builds that right into your calendar. And then the wellness one is really good about how many emails did you respond to outside of your work hours. So you're seeing like, am I being really responsive at 11 o'clock at night? So I just find that it's got very useful analytics to figure out how you're doing in terms of your own control of your inbox and your calendar.
Great. So yeah, that was the missing part, that you need to search for the My Analytics email. Got it.
Yes.
Awesome. One of the takeaways I got out of this is that boundaries matter. It seems to be a big part of your presentation. And we need to set them in both our personal and our work lives now more so than ever, since home and work have now merged almost.
Right.
I love the idea of the email challenge, not the ice bucket challenge.
Right.
Although sometimes you probably would want to do the ice bucket challenge after looking at your emails.
That's right. That's right.
But yes, definitely the idea of minimizing interruptions. I think that's key, and that's something that everybody can apply in their work environment. I've seen multiple articles on that same concept where one interruption knocks you back by 20 minutes or more,
Mhm.
which you add that up over the course of the day, that's a lot of time.
Mhm.
And then the other thing that I really love was the idea of the growth mindset. And you can just see that applying that to, alternative dispute resolution. So right now, online mediations are the thing. It's the only way, pretty much, how to get things done. And who would have ever thought that we would be here doing that? And it would work, and is working. And it's probably something now, this great social experiment, that's going to continue. So that's just another example, I think, of a growth mindset, taking advantage of something like that.
Absolutely.
Don't see any questions yet. So I do think this is a very wonderful and helpful webinar. Thank you so much, Illenia.
Oh, my pleasure.
I hope that everybody that has watched this has enjoyed the presentation and learned something that can help you. I would like to remind everybody that there's the remaining schedule for the Health and Wellness series. Next up is Changing the Paradigm of Who We Are by Deborah Kobishley and Professor Janet Seitlin. This is on October the 13th at 12 p.m. Additionally, after that, we have on October the 21st at 12 p.m. Ethical Considerations when Using Alternative Dispute Resolution to Bridge the Social Justice Gap. This is by Jamie Cassidy, also from the Legal Services of Greater Miami. On October the 26th at 12 p.m., we have Navigating Lawyering in Life, a roadmap, where there's a discussion with Bruce Blitman, Paula Black, Maya Aaron, and Perry Peckus, discussing how to transition, do various transitions in lawyering and life, and finding that niche that is a balance between the two. And then we end it all on October the 29th at 12 p.m. with Happiness for Lawyers Guaranteed or Your Misery Back by Mark Eiglarsh, which is that's obviously a catchy seminar, but one that obviously is a good way to end it all, I believe. So we hope you attend. Everybody can attend the remaining full webinars of the series. If you cannot do so because of your schedule, please know that the InReach program for the Florida Bar has these recorded, and they'll be available for purchase afterwards. And I would encourage all lawyers who are interested in mediation or want to become mediators to join the ADR section. We have many CLE programs just like you've seen today, including our wonderful mentoring academy for both mediators and arbitrators. So that's all I have today. Thank you, and be well and stay well.